It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. Go get 'em, George.
George Galloway, and the mother of all talk shows. Welcome to the Open University of the Airwaves with George Galloway.
It's war on Venezuela, and it's to be declared by President Trump this evening in the Oval Office, Tucker Carlson reveals. And the former bull in a china shop has become a cuck in a china shop, humped for Hanukkah by men and women who represent Israel in Washington, D.C. Last night at Hanukkah celebrations. It's all coming up here on the mother of all talk shows. Stay tuned.
Curious about our curriculum? Have something to say? Then call us now to join the debate on the mother of all talk shows. The only education you can get for free. George Galloway, the mother of all talk shows. With George Galloway, the world is our classroom, and you're welcome to sit in and join the seminar.
He has no lawful authority to do so. It would require an act of Congress for him to do so. But that's not going to stop Donald Trump declaring war on Venezuela and, by extension, much of Latin America, certainly the masses of Latin America, if not their increasingly fascistic governments. It is a black eye for me, for sure. I said as recently as last evening to my good friend Jackson Hinkle that I thought that Trump was bluffing, was blinding us to something else that was going to happen. But I, as George Bush would put it, underestimated Donald Trump's madness, about which more later. According to Tucker Carlson, who definitely should know, he was briefed yesterday that in the presidential address to be given later this evening in the United States, Donald Trump is going to declare a state of war with Venezuela. May God help the people of Venezuela, and may God help the soldiers, sailors and airmen that Donald Trump orders in to do his bidding, because mass casualty event it definitely will be. And it will not be a short war, and it will not be decided by who's in the presidential palace in Caracas. As Mr. Churchill once put it, that would not be the beginning of the end, that would merely be the end of the beginning. It will be guerrilla war. It will be guerra prolongera. It will be a prolonged war fought in the cities, in the towns, in the villages, in the hamlets, in the mountains, in the jungles, and on the beaches. The Venezuelan people will never surrender to the overbearing arrogance of this lunatic, Donald J. Trump. Why do I say lunatic? Because I read his address, which could only be described as a presidential address, on Truth Social last night, in which, inter alia, he says that he has now blockaded Venezuela completely, and that the country is completely surrounded, and that the blockade will soon be joined by more ships, and it will not end until, and I'm quoting this one directly, until Venezuela returns all the oil and all the land that they have stolen from the United States of America. If that's not Amendment 25 territory, I don't know what is. Donald Rumsfeld famously opined that it wasn't America's fault that God put America's oil under other people's countries. That was actually a more logical framing, formulation than what Trump wrote last night. Trump is claiming Venezuela's oil as his own, and he's claiming Venezuelan land as his own. Well, in a way, he did everybody a favor by that formulation, because if there is one thing guaranteed to maximize the resistance and opposition to the war that is now imminent, it is the claim that the United States owns the land of Latin America. Never mind the oil, but the land under which the oil is to be found. Nothing could turn this more obviously into a patriotic war. It's now guaranteed to send a beacon throughout Latin America. And they're quite good at guerra prolongera, you know. They're quite good guerrilla fighters, the Latin American peoples. After all, thanks to American support for military and fascist dictatorship throughout Latin America, all of my lifetime, they've had to fight their way to anything resembling a democracy. They had to fight their way to one in Colombia. They had to fight their way to one, and many times in Venezuela. They had to fight their way to one in Argentina, in Honduras, in Guatemala, in El Salvador, in Nicaragua, in Brazil. The people had to fight this guerra prolongera, and they ultimately triumphed. And they will triumph also in Venezuela. As I said, it will merely be the beginning of the end if Maria Machado, the Nobel laureate, does walk into the presidential palace. If she does, the actual president, the real president, elected president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, whom I knew when he was a bus driver, knew when he was the foreign minister, and now know as the legitimate president of Venezuela, he will probably either be in the mountains or in the jungles or in the mountains with jungles, in Garland Nixon's peerless phrase. So this battle will continue for many years, and it will not be confined to the borders of Venezuela. There are going to be a lot of American casualties. There are going to be a lot of American losses. The international system will receive a gigantic shock to the system by the action that Donald Trump is going to declare this evening. This is blatant illegality, followed following on from the blatant piracy with the oil tanker earlier in the week, following on from the blatant murder of unknown rubber dinghies in the Eastern Caribbean and in the environs, not just of Venezuela, but of Colombia. This is blatant, brazen illegality. Not since Hitler declared that Poland had invaded Germany has there been a more paper-thin, transparent, translucent war of aggression, war of choice, just like so many wars of aggression and wars of choice that the United States has fought in my lifetime. In the Dominican Republic, in the whole of the Latin American continent, the United States has chosen conflict with its near neighbors, and then complained, by the way, that a significant number of refugees and illegal migrants end up on the other side of the Rio Grande. You ain't seen nothing yet, Donald. You ain't seen nothing yet on either of those two cases. We'll be discussing with Angelo Giuliani, Angelo in China, who's not in China, but in Venezuela. Bad luck for him, but at least he's able to bring you eyewitness accounts of what's happening in Venezuela as they now wait for the declaration of war, the kind of ranting, rasping declaration of war that Hitler made against his neighbors in the lifetime of some people actually watching this show tonight. There have been disturbing signs all week that the United States is slipping out of control, certainly slipping out of legality, slipping out of democratic control, slipping out of the Constitution of the American Republic, but slipping out of control in all kinds of ways. It began by the entirely unsolved murder of two students at Brown University, where the sirens weren't sounded, where the CCTV wasn't working, and where an unknown assassin entered and murdered two young people in the prime of their lives in their own classroom, in their own university, for which their parents had paid $100,000 a year in tuition fees. The Keystone Cops cannot be compared to the antics of the authorities, university and police in Providence, Rhode Island. There has never been a more chaotic, a more shambolic, and a more utterly absurd and ridiculous response to the murder of two innocent students than we have been watching all week. The principal of the university was with his husband in Israel, but dashed back in time to completely bamboozle and confuse the parents of the children in the school, the teachers, the public. Nobody knew what the principal was saying. And we thought that was bad until we saw the police chief, until we saw the mayor, the ruling elite in an elite state of the United States, covering one of the elite Ivy League universities of the United States, were suddenly exposed as bumbling fools, and two children paid with their lives for it. The assassin has not been identified. He hasn't even been clearly photographed. Even in a $100,000 a year school, they had no CCTV in the building because, hey, it was the old building. They've only got CCTV in the new building. So we've no idea what this man looks like, but I have a very strong feeling that the same man murdered one of the world's top nuclear scientists in his own home in Boston, Massachusetts. The wizard professor of nuclear science of MIT was murdered, and the authorities have no idea by whom. Let me turn to one of the most profoundly disturbing, though I'll admit it had massive comedy appeal. One of the most disturbing, deranged, unhinged occasions I have ever seen in watching Donald Trump's presidency now for a total of 5 years. I thought it couldn't get any more ridiculous, and it would be a laughing matter if it weren't so deadly serious. The bull in the china shop, Donald Trump, metamorphosed in front of our eyes into the cuck in the china shop, being humped for Hanukkah by Miriamadelson and by Alan Dershowitz, about whom more in a minute, and above all by the bear. Don't gay people have a classification of a kind of gay man? Don't they call him a bear? Well, the bear was Marklevin. Marklevin took charge of Donald Trump on the stage last night. He pulled him and pushed him around like he was a wimp, like he was a schoolboy, as Marklevin hugged him, put his arm round his shoulder, arm round his neck, and told him he had a responsibility to go for 4 more years. He told Donald Trump in front of the world, "You are the first Jewish president." And Trump whimpered. "It's true. It's true," he said coquettishly. The bull became a cuck, humped for Hanukkah. And Miriamadelson, she whispered in his ear, to him and hundreds of millions of people who now have watched it all over the world. "I've checked," she said, "with Alan Dershowitz. You can run for 4 more years. You must run. I will give you the money." She's the First Lady. She's effectively the president, as her late husband, Sheldon Adelson, was in Trump's first term, according to Trump himself, who told us that Adelson had him on tap, could drop in anytime he liked, ask him for anything and receive it in exchange for $250 million. It's cheap, that, you know. I mean, it's cheap at the price. It's seriously bargain basement prices for the Golanheights, which, as he now points out, is worth hundreds of billions of dollars because of the precious energy resources underneath it. And he says, sotto voce, to the world, I should have asked him for something in return. It's cheap at the price for recognition of the annexation in defiance of the entire world of the holy city of Jerusalem, of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, of the burial place of Christ himself. It's cheap at the price. 250 million? As Trump himself said last night, 250 million ain't what it used to be. So who's Alan Dershowitz? You may well ask. Well, he was in the room. Alan's here, said Trump. I saw Alan. Alan's in the room. Who's Alan? Alan! 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 Who is he? Well, he's only the lawyer of Jeffrey Epstein. He's only the guy who's been on 1,000 television shows defending Jeffrey Epstein's reputation. And he's only the Alan that Virginia Giuffre says in her book raped her so violently that she was bleeding from every orifice. That's Alan. That's Alan Dershowitz, whose legal advice Trump just accepted in public, on television, that he can run for 4 more years, though that will not be the last word on that matter, any more than his declaration of war on Venezuela this evening will be the last word on Venezuela. Angelo Giuliani coming up after this short break. Don't miss it.
As the green smoke rose, their faces flashed out, pallid green, and faded again as it vanished. Then slowly the hissing passed into a humming, into a long, loud, droning noise. Suddenly, a humped shape rose out of the pit, and the ghost of a beam of light seemed to flicker out after it. Forthwith, flashes of actual flame, a bright glare leaping from one to another, sprang from the scattered group of men. It was as if some invisible jet impinged upon them and flashed into white flame. It was as if each man were suddenly and momentarily turned to fire.
Now here's the poll this evening. Which is the greatest threat to world peace? Israel, Islam, or Trump? Well, Israel and Trump appear to be the same thing, but which is the greatest threat to world peace? My goodness, 30,000 people have already voted. And I'm only announcing it now. Which is the greatest threat to world peace? Israel, Islam, or Trump? You can vote on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway. You can vote on my X. You can vote on the YouTube community poll. You can vote on the YouTube stream. You can vote on my Patreon page if you are one of the avant-garde, one of the vanguard, one of the creme de la creme. That's patreon.com/George Galloway. And well, it's quite a distance between third place, second place, and first place. That's all I'm going to say at this moment. Israel, Islam, or Trump? Which is the greatest threat to world peace? Let's make this a record poll this evening. If you want to call the show, it's toll-free in the US and Canada, +1 844 944 3344, and free in Britain and Ireland, 08081 196 5522. And the worldwide number is 0044 203 966 2625. Now, as I told you, Angelo Giuliani is one of the very best Western commentators on and in China. I follow Angelo in China all the time. I love to see his material. But very bravely, he decided to go to Venezuela in the, I think, maybe 3 weeks ago, he'll tell us. And he's been reporting daily from the streets of Caracas. And now he joins us. Direct from Venezuela, Angelo Giuliani. Angelo, I hope and pray that you're safe where you are. You'll have heard the news, like I did, from Tucker Carlson, no less, who says that he was briefed yesterday that war is to be declared by Donald Trump this evening. Your first reaction, please.
Well, it is quite shocking, especially here when you go around Caracas in the streets. It is business as usual. It's a peaceful place. And you need to keep in mind that it's a Catholic country. Here, people are extremely traditional when it comes to the holidays, Christmas holidays. And it's pretty much the whole month. People celebrate Christmas. So now the discussion of war has not been the topic here. Mostly people are concerned about daily life, just how you put food on the table, inflation, But overall, it's a peaceful place, so you don't have a feeling of threat of war. Now, in terms of where are the tense places, I would say is when you pass the immigration. Of course, I think it's more difficult, and they need to question all the foreigners that are coming in, because they are, potentially agents, foreign agents. And I would say another place which is extremely sensitive is around the Palacio Miraflores. Now, when it comes to my relationship with Venezuela, I was in the early days of Chavismo. In 1999, I spent a year back then in Venezuela, and I've been coming back regularly because it's a very special place for me. And it was very interesting for me to be close to the Chavismo experiment, which is quite unique. There are lots of big achievements, and I think for Trump and for the US, it is a big risk to have a socialist experiment to be successful. So they did everything in the last 20 years just to make sure that these miracles wouldn't happen, because it was a miracle. If you look at especially the old generation here in Venezuela, they do know how was Venezuela before Chavismo and what Chavismo brought to Venezuela. Now, it's not about ideology, George. For me, my perspective is I come from the aspect of sovereignty. For sovereignty, we need to go back all the time to this element, which is sovereignty, because it's about self-determination. Whenever the West is talking about democracy has no meaning whatsoever if you don't have the foundation of sovereignty. Decisions shouldn't be made in Brussels, shouldn't be made in Washington, and it's about decency. People need to have a decent life. They do not want to be slaves, and they don't want this new form of colonialism. Now, what can I say? This aggression. I think the U.S. empire is desperate, and I would say Trump has two problems. I would say internally he lacks backing, support. There's only 30% of Americans that are supporting war against Venezuela, and I would say legally, if he was to fail, there would be a major problem legally, and it's a precedent. I think now the U.S. is turning, because of Trump, it's turning into a complete rogue state, especially with the support he did with Gaza. Now attacking Venezuela, we absolutely no legal ground, absolutely no support. That would create a new precedent. Then anything is possible. And I would say we need to look at the broader picture when it comes to Latin America. If Venezuela falls, there's going to be a domino effect. Actually, Cuba could fall even before Venezuela. And then we're looking at Nicaragua, Colombia, and I would say all of it. There's no compromise. There's no, it's about a power grab. Even Brazil could be next.
I suppose the dimensions changed with Trump's social media post last night. They told us it was about drug running, about fentanyl, of which there is not a single pill coming from Venezuela, as the US DEA has confirmed in its annual report. Then it was about drug runners. But now, after last night, he's demanding Venezuela return all the oil and land that it has stolen from the United States, 2,000 miles away. It's difficult to even understand what that even means. But for Latin America, it's a big warning that the Yankees are not just after your resources, they're after your land itself, your patrimony. This is a profound and dangerous shift, is it not?
No, absolutely. I think you see, he's shifting from this excuse of drug trafficking, which you mentioned just before. The 2024 DEA report didn't even mention a single time Venezuela. And now Venezuela has become the major drug exporter. It's absolutely, there's no foundation, there's nothing out there. It was just pure invention. And now it's coming with an excuse of they want the oil and the land back. It's just absurd. I don't even know. There's not a single analyst out there that could actually find, I mean, any justification. How can you claim the resources of Venezuela or the oil? It doesn't make any sense. I think this is an empire which is completely, I mean, desperate. But of course, we are expecting probably a declaration of war tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time. But I would say that war, I don't see boots on the ground. We need to look at, what is going to be the scale. I think it's going to be probably gradual. It's going to be extremely asymmetric. There's not going to be kinetic confrontation directly with the militia. I think this is going to be over the distance. So very targeted, and I would expect a lot of cyber warfare and strangulation of Venezuela. But I do not expect something massive. I mean, boots on the ground. They don't have enough troops. And I would say what we need to pay attention is maybe a fifth column. The US has been building a fifth column here with the head of the CIA, USAID, NED, all those NGOs that have put massive money behind this fifth column. Well, they're hoping to create disturbance, chaos, and strangulation of the economy. And ultimately, I think they're still hoping to have a remake of what happened in 2002. If you remember, George, in 2002, they managed with a very small fringe of the army to use that fringe to take the power that lasted only 48 hours. Now it's a different army, which is much more solid. But I think there is more to that. If he's so bold, he might have some cards out there. Now, I would say what I fear the most, because the problem for Trump is that he lacks legitimacy and public support. So what could change would be a false flag operation. So do pay attention for false flag operation. There's a high probability, and this wouldn't be the first time. And that could change the public perception, because I really doubt that Trump is going to go all the way. And keep in mind, this is also diversion. If Trump puts too much resources here, that would be dramatic for his plan to shift its attention and its focus towards China. So big question mark. It's very hard to see how it is going to be. But from my personal impression, I feel that this is going to be limited at the beginning, and probably he wants to negotiate with Maduro. But coming from Trump, you know how Trump is. Negotiation, there's no win-win. He's going for the full power grab, for the full capitulation, for the full regime change, and this won't happen. Venezuelans say it clearly in Spanish: no pasarán, and I believe they will stick together, and there's going to be even, I don't see this fifth column to succeed, because people are getting to be united behind the Venezuelan flag.
I used to have great fun in the early part of this century with Donald Rumsfeld's phrase, "It's not our fault that God put America's oil under other people's countries." But Trump has now gone much further than that. At least Rumsfeld acknowledged that the oil was under other people's countries. But Trump, in his declaration last night, has actually claimed that the oil belongs to the United States and the land belongs to the United States. But how is this going down in the region, Angelo? What are the neighbors saying? And then I'll ask you, what are the big powers saying? But, for example, I saw the new president of Chile give his support, the son of an SS officer, by the way, who escaped to Chile. He gave his support to an American invasion of Venezuela. What about the other neighbors?
Well, I would say I'm looking closely at the reactions coming from Colombia and Brazil. Those countries that are not completely sovereign states, there's a huge influence. The CIA is there, is very present, and you have also all those NGOs, USAID, that is influencing. So they they're in a gray area. They cannot do everything they want. I need to remind people, but Gustavo Petro and also Lula, when Maduro was elected, they went along with the US and didn't recognize Maduro. And also, they've been not very clear about their support with Maduro, but now there is a public pressure that makes them shift towards a support of Maduro. So you see, those countries in all Latin America, they've been their democracy has been hijacked because you have all those regime change NGOs that hijack the democracy. You see, democracy, when you look at as the sovereignty, there is a different, I would say, metrics. One is the physical, and everybody understands that. But then you have information space. You have all the social media. You have NGOs. You have all those leaders that are pre-selected by the West, by the US, and funded by the US. Name one person like Corina Machado. Corina Machado comes from a very wealthy family that used to be in the steel industry, but she was pre-selected by the US, and her media, her organization called Sumate, was funded by the NED, which is a spin-off of the CIA. So basically, she's a US agent. So they do the same. In Lula's government, you have members that come from the Soros organization. So you see, the problem is that you have the penetration of the US within those governments, and they're not completely sovereign. So there are different dimensions. And some countries like Trinidad, Tobago doesn't have any choice. USAID has put so much money there, and it's either they go along the US agenda and accept to have US Army troops to be on their soil, or they are next.
Yeah. Now, in the time we have left, before I wish you Godspeed in getting home, the Venezuelans are not without international allies, although they are far away. Even Cuba is far away and can be interdicted easily. China has massive investments in people's Venezuela and has a massive trade relationship. Russia also has a strategic relationship with the Maduro government, with the Chavista revolution. And Iran has deep economic ties and other ties with Venezuela. What's the impact on these countries if this relationship that they all valued is now under bombardment or even invasion by the United States of America?
Well, Venezuela is a key piece when it comes to the axis of resistance, but also in the multipolarity. So I would say this could very much damage, this multipolar project. Also, when you look at the direct enemies of the US, you have Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. Those three countries combined, actually, they are the very big suppliers of energy to China, because ultimately everything is linked to the last piece. It is China. So indirectly here, they are hitting China by hitting Venezuela. So the possibilities, a lot of people are asking, what are those countries doing? Iran, Russia, China, what are they doing for Venezuela? Well, the problem is that they're doing as much as they can. I think they are sharing intelligence, they're giving weapons, they're doing as much as they can. But they have a problem because in the world right now, there's only one country that has power projection. It is the United States. Even though China and Russia have a very strong armies, but they do not have that power projections because they have almost zero US army bases outside their country because they are built to defend themselves. US army, on the contrary, is an aggressive army which was built to project their power. So that's the real empire. That was the purpose. So you see, they are limited. And also, there's another thing is that, remember, there was a paper. It was on the Rand Corporation that said, it was in 2019, that said, extending Russia. And They did, by extending Russia, they wanted Russia to go into a conflict against Ukraine, but also Syria. Everything was written. Everything is in those papers. The problem is that Russia cannot afford to extend itself because it has limited capacities. It can defeat NATO there, but it cannot do much more, and it will do whatever it can. But it is limited.
Well, God bless you and keep you, and safe home for Christmas, Angelo. I know that it was your intention to leave on Christmas Day, no less, but your plans may have changed. Don't tell me them if they have, but please accept the good wishes and thanks of everyone at the mother of all talk shows. Much obliged to you for your eyewitness account on the eve of Donald Trump declaring war on Venezuela. Let me take a quick break, then it's your calls all the way to the hour. Stay tuned.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special announcement. A big thank you to all our wonderful listeners, as the Mother of All Talk Shows podcast is now one of the most listened to political podcasts in the entire world. We are the #1 English-speaking political podcast in the Middle East, and in the last year alone have charted in the top 10 in podcast land in Pakistan, Russia, and China. Like, rate, and subscribe to the MOATS podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts to be a part of the fastest rising independent news show in the world.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
So the poll again: which is the greatest threat to world peace? Israel, Islam, or Trump? Wow, what a poll, I can tell you. Micah is in Dubai on Trump. Let's hear from Micah. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, here's Michael. Salam alaikum, privyet, and very good evening to wherever you are.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah barakatuh. Thank you.
Perfect. I voted for Trump. The reason is in his first term, he sent weapons to Ukraine. He makes the sanctions against Russia, and he doesn't implement the Minsk agreements. In the second term, now he has the chance to say when he has had self-confidence, he would say America make a mistake the last 4 years, and I don't go along with it, and we go away from the Ukraine war. And he didn't do it. And the last chance he had now in the last 2 weeks with the frozen Russian assets, that he pressure the puppets of EU and other states to say, don't do that in any way, or I'm out of NATO or something. And that's one of the main things what I want to say to you. And the other thing is the protests the last days in London and Italy against the governments and the war effort. They are great. They don't be published in any media now, and the public is really scrambling under the elites everywhere.
Sure, there is no media now in Western countries. The media has been conscripted in order to manufacture consent for the people to be conscripted. The media is now just a stenography service for the government, which is itself merely the lipstick on the pig of the deep state and the people who really govern. That much is clear. I asked the question in the week, Almost every journalist and broadcaster in Britain hates. Almost every journalist and broadcaster in Britain hates Labour, as it used to be called. But every journalist and broadcaster in Britain supports Keir Starmer's foreign policies. They support his policy towards Gaza, towards the Ukraine, and towards Venezuela. And how is that? How does that compute? You hate the guy, you hate his party, but you sure as hell support his foreign policy. The only logical answer to that is that these foreign policies are not his. They are not Labour's foreign policies. They're not Starmer's. Starmer is here today and gone tomorrow, but the foreign policy continues. It continues whether the ties are red or blue. It continues whether the Prime Minister is Sunak or Starmer. That's all a mere bagatelle. What counts is that the foreign policies of the state are continued, continuous. And that much is now clearer than it has ever been, which means it's somebody else's foreign policy that we are following. And the point that you make about the disappointment that is Donald Trump, well, I only believed in one good thing about him. And I have no idea how that good thing has come to pass. But the one good thing that I could say about him was that he would not take us to World War III with Russia. And that's no small thing. And so far, I've been right about that, if wrong about everything else in relation to Donald Trump. Thanks, Mika. You can leave comments, by the way. Just scan the QR code now. Leave a comment on the YouTube stream, and I'll read it out. Jeffrey R. says, where's Juan Guaido, the legitimate leader of Venezuela? You know, I almost asked Angelo that question, but I wanted to let him go for reasons which will be obvious. I didn't want to keep him too long. But Maria Machado, Juan Guaido, has anyone ever seen those two of them in the same room? I'm only asking. Barry Barnett says, if illegal orders are not to be obeyed, then military personnel should refuse to do anything against Venezuela. And Witness Death of Israel says, why is Islam on the poll? Well, there are people, 5%, 16%, 14%, 7%, and 0%, who believe that Islam is the greatest threat to world peace. It's a pitifully small percentage, especially as one of them is from X, where our polls are always unrepresentative. And Darrell Ernst says the correct answer to the poll is the belief in authority. That's the greatest danger to world peace. And Tia Sasha says, just been exposed that Trump actually converted to Judaism 2 years ago. Therefore, that makes the first Jewish president of America the biggest threat to the world. Well, did he mean it when he said, it's true, it's true, shucks, it's true, I'm the first Jewish president, I just didn't tell anybody, I just lied to all these pastors, I said, that come in here and speak in tongues and lay hands upon me and give me a globe that I should hold and look into the future with. I was lying to all of them. It's true. I am the first Jewish president. Did he mean it? Or is he just a raving imbecile? Who can tell? Mitcha 1065 says, how did all our Yankee oil get under their jungle? That is the tweet of the night. How did all our Yankee oil get under their jungle? Nathan is in Seattle on Maduro. Go ahead, Nathan.
Hey, George. I want to use your platform to beg of Nicolas Maduro, President Putin, really any American enemy, help us take out our drug dealers locally. We got Pfizer, Moderna, They have way too much power. They're forcing injections, getting people killed, and then they just get a slap on the wrist and a fine. I'm not saying I want to see them bombed on their yachts, but turnaround is fair play. So if Putin bombed a CEO board meeting or anything like that, it will be completely justified. And talk to me. I'll give out my LinkedIn information, and we can arrange something. We need to do something, because if it's okay for the president to do, it's okay for them to do to our big pharmaceutical companies.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen, Nathan, but your point was made. Now, MOATS donors, thanks to all of you who've become big donors this week. Why not join these honourable members of the exclusive club? Don Stewart, Robert McKinnon, George J. Ashkar Jr., thank you, George, for your ongoing weekly donations, Gerard McGarry, and Norman Bell. Please, do become a MOATS donor tonight. It's really simple. Support the show. Scan that QR code or visit the website, moats.tv. Syed is in Saudi Arabia. He wants to demilitarize the U.S. Chance would be a fine thing, Syed. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Galloway. It's a pleasure to speak to you once again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The voice is breaking up a little bit, but I'll get right to it. And I would love to hear your take, which I believe will be far more eloquent than mine, but I would request that you allow me to conclude with on a more positive note. So I'll start off by saying that I'm of the firm belief that if the U.S. does start another war, I believe that the best solution for all of humanity, including the average American who himself is oppressed, would be the complete demilitarization of the U.S. The U.S. is responsible for more than 80-plus regime change operations post-World War II, not to mention the wars that they've been involved in. You know, estimates are placed at between 30 and 80 conflicts, which have caused quite a bit of destruction. And I believe that the fault lies entirely with the military-industrial complex and their Zionist masters. But on a more positive note, I believe that the U.S. does possess the capability of being one of the greatest forces for good the world has ever witnessed, even at this point. And I will refer you to men like Tucker Carlson, like Dr. Rudolph Ware, who's currently running for governor in California, and many other honorable men and women, Dr. Jill Stein, your friend, being one of them as well. And I think that it's very important to highlight that fact, because you can't lose hope. That being hopeless is one of the greatest of sins in Islam.
Sure.
And I think that's what differentiates
it's definitely a sin.
true Muslims from the Salafi.
It's a sin to be hopeless, and I never am. I always have hope and faith that will never leave me. I must say the idea of demilitarizing a nuclear-armed superpower is somewhat ambitious, but you are in Saudi Arabia. Last time we spoke, you were in Mecca. If you're still there, maybe say a little prayer from that. The People's Poet is on the line. It's Christopher from Redcar, and he's most welcome to join us. Christopher, are you there?
George, right, first of all, I want to say how much I love you. I know I upset you a while ago, but I love you. I still love you. You're a socialist, and I'm a socialist, and my socialist brothers in arms, right? I want to say to you that I see this stuff online, these generals coming on the press conferences and stuff, and they're saying, oh, look at this, Russia are going to attack us, Russia are going to do this, Russia are going to do that. And when I saw it, George, I immediately thought back to Colin Powell when he held up like reconnaissance photographs of Iraqi bases that held weapons of mass destruction. When they presented the politicians, Tony Blair and George Bush and all their generals and all their leaders and all the elite, they presented all of their documents and dossiers that said weapons of mass destruction were there. And George, there were none there whatsoever. And when I watched that general online on Sky News and I saw him saying, oh, look, we're going to be invaded by Russia and stuff, and I'm thinking, my God, people, can't you see? Can you not see that what is happening now happened 10, 20, 25 years ago? The same powers that are in control now were in control then, and they're trying desperately to drag us into a war for whatever reasons. My own personal opinion is I think they're trying to cover their tracks, George, because they've given that many billions and billions and billions of powers and dollars to Nazis and corrupt people in establishment in Ukraine that they're definitely trying to cover the tracks. And I think to myself, George,
I think there's a lot to that, Christopher. I love you like a brother. I'm glad you made that call, and it was a very powerful one indeed. The sense of déjà vu is just overwhelming. And when I see these generals with a kilo of gold leaf around their shoulders, these gold lanyards, I've no idea if they know how ridiculous they look, bent over with the weight of medals, almost all of them unearned. They are upper-class twits. I mean, glass-jawed, upper-class twits, idiots for American viewers. And they're on there telling us that our sons and our daughters, have you noticed, are going to have to sacrifice their lives to the coming war with Russia. Like Russia wants, with all respect to Redcar, Chris, like Russia wants to take over Redcar and Middlesbrough and take responsibility for the closed down steelworks and the ghost towns of the north of England, that Russia, the biggest country in the world, bar none, with 12 time zones, wants to take over the Lake District, Newcastle, Sunderland. You've only got to state it to see how idiotic it is. And these people are still performing this jive on our television sets. But Christopher, you know as well as I know the old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. If we get fooled again, it's our own fault. Christopher, people's poet in Redcar, in the north east of England, on the lies of our rulers. Now look, breaking news on the MOATS podcast. We're now in the top 5 for political podcasts in Indonesia and Egypt this week. I'll be in Indonesia very, very shortly, and I hope to put that number 5 up to number 1. And we're in the top 20 in the UAE, in Peru, in Bahrain, Ecuador, and Qatar. And we've entered the top 40 in Portugal, Australia, and Hong Kong in the political charts. Scan that QR code now and download it right away. One call before the break. Kamal is in Nevada. Welcome, Kamal. What would you like to say?
Hi, George. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, brother. Go ahead.
Okay, hello. This is about... so I wanted to ask you a question about the BBC. I'm in the United States of America in Nevada, and I wrote the Department of State informing them that I would not necessarily think that this BBC issue where they changed the video and they made our president of the United States look horrible in his election process. I informed them that this is more of a state issue than an individual issue. So my question is, how would a person in your country, in the United Kingdom, or Britain, I'm not sure how to say it properly, but how would they have recourse if they were brought through false representation through a public medium? Because my argument
well,
is
if the public medium was in the United States, we would have no chance whatsoever. And it's a bad night, Kamal, to invite me to evince any sympathies for Donald J. Trump. He's about to declare war on some friends of mine. So don't ask me to choose between the BBC and Donald Trump. I've got to tell you, I have nothing but contempt for each of them, for both of them. And as Henry Kissinger once said on the Iran-Iraq war, it's a pity both can't lose. Comments. Mega John F1 says, Millet owes the US $80 billion. Go after him. Go after him. He's in Trump's pocket, or rather your pocket. Martin Freak says, Scumbag Lula is an asset of the Regime Change NGO. And Kevin Wright said, Trinidad sold out to evil. Let me take a quick break because we have the original Gerald Celente of Trends magazine coming right up. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. I wonder if there's more to it, Anthony. She says not, but might she be preparing for a presidential run?
You very well may, but Americans don't like a quitter. So even if she was starting to speak some truth, we're not going to take that very well.
Fair point. Very, very fair point. But Donald Trump's political position looks to me now extremely isolated. He has destroyed a very considerable part of his most militant base. He hasn't just lost Marjorie Taylor Greene, he's lost Tucker Carlson, he's almost entirely lost Alex Jones, he has substantially lost the support of Steve Bannon, and many, many others are beginning to question his judgment, and some even to question his continuing fitness for office. So he's in a very weak position. But if he wanted to, he could take the bull by the horns on this Ukraine question. He could say, stop sabotaging me. Don't think by leaking things you're going to divert me. I'm serious. I'm ending this war, and I'm certainly going to end America's involvement in this war.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Get voting on the poll. You've got 40 minutes. Which is the greatest threat to world peace, Israel, Islam, or Trump? You can vote on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway, on my X, on the YouTube community poll, on the YouTube stream, or if you are one of the world's finest, the Vanguard, supporting me on patreon.com/George Galloway, you can vote there also. The poll is going bananas. Let's try and make it a record poll. Which is the greatest threat to world peace, Israel, Islam, or Trump? Me, I'd be voting for Trump, especially on a night like this. Let's hear what the seer, the sage, Gerald Celente of Trends Journal, publisher and founder of Trends Research Institute. Let me start, if I may, dear Gerald, with my commiserations. Your country seems to be going to hell in a handcart. The FBI, once renowned throughout the world, they used to make TV series about it. It's revealed as a Keystone Cop outfit run by a bug-eyed clown who's running around on the FBI's dime following his girlfriend at concerts. You've got two now very sinister murder cases in Rhode Island, and in Boston, and not a dicky bird of a clue as to who carried out these two murders and if they were linked. And, small matter, you've got your president about to illegally declare war on Venezuela. Wow, what a time to be an American.
Well, you called it a country, and that's what it is. You got it?
No comment.
So here's the deal. Here's the deal. Let's go back, which nobody talks about. Talking about Venezuela. Let's go back to 2019, 2020, when Trump was president. And let's go to Google it up, his State of the Union address. He declares that Maduro, the president of Venezuela, is a socialist dictator, and that the United States will restore peace, etc., and that Maduro is illegal, and he will be smashed and broken. All right? Had nothing to do about the BS about their dealing drugs. And then, what no one talks about in the prostitute media, because that's all the mainstream media is, they're prostitutes. They're media whores that get paid to put out by their corporate pimps and government whoremasters. This little boy, Juan Guaido, is the real president, Trump said, of Venezuela. And he and 59 other countries are going to make sure that he becomes president. Everybody's forgotten about this. And all the members of Congress, and you got to put in ASS, it's Congress, all stand up and give that Guaido, a standing ovation. And he stands there, and it was like you were saying about all these little arrogant generals and admirals with all their little gold buttons on, dressed up like in costumes, like it's still Halloween. He got this little piece of crap sitting next to him, Guaido, in the U.S. Congress over there, with all his medals on. And every one of the scumbag Congress men and women in our country stand up and gave him a round of applause. Now, you think the United States would have invaded Iraq, Libya, and Syria if their major export was broccoli? It's about stealing the oil and the natural resources of Venezuela. And I want to make this really clear. No outrage, zero outrage against the BS that spewed out of Trump's mouth when he was running for office in 2024. We want to have peace on earth all over. Hey, yeah, I just bombed Iran. Oh, only 112 bombs over Somalia. Hey, I'm a peace candidate, all right? Oh, how about I forgot Iran? One after another, now killing innocent people with no proof on little power boats 1,500 miles from America. Hey, they got drugs in there. We got proof. You don't kill people if they got drugs in there. You bring them to court. All right, but it goes on. You ready? That was on September 25th, 2024, Trump said that. Quote, "We're going to have peace through strength. We will not have to fight." Okay, that was on October 12th, 2024. This is when he's BSing and running for president. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. October 20th, 2024. I want immediate peace. January 20th, 2025. I'm moving quickly to end wars, settle conflicts, and restore the planet to peace. I want peace. Said the piece of crap on January 25th, 2025. Where's the outrage of this guy lying his way into office?
He did. He lied his way into office. That much is clear, and that actually has turned out to be the least of his sins, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But maybe you could ask Judge Knapp for me what Trump meant when he said last night that Venezuela must return all the oil and the land that they have stolen from us. I mean, as I've been making the point, at least Rumsfeld, when he said it's not our fault that God put America's oil under other people's countries, at least he was acknowledging that the oil was under other people's countries. Trump last night declared that the land and the oil in Venezuela belonged to the U.S. What does that even mean?
That's what I said. You think we're the same thing with Iraq and with that little scumbag that just died? What was his name? That was with Halliburton. That was under the
Cheney.
When we invaded Iraq under the Bush administration. What was that guy's name? Penis Cheney. I can't call him a dick. Penis Cheney. Oh, with Halliburton going into Iraq. Again, it's the same thing. Again, there's that great book, War's a Racket. I was looking for the comment here about from Smedley Butler, who wrote the book.
Yeah.
And it was said, it was about going, and here it is. You ready? War is a racket.
Yeah.
It always has been. It is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. War's a racket. Nothing else to be said.
Yeah, and always has been. God bless the memory of Smedley Butler, the only general in the U.S. Army ever to tell the truth. But we're now at the end game, aren't we? If he starts this war tonight, as they say he's going to, what happens next, Gerald? Are people going to flock to the colors to go and fight in the jungles of Venezuela, or what?
People believe the crap that they sell. There's this little jerk I mentioned, that Penis Cheney on the Bush, little Georgie Bush, pair of cojones smaller than a mothball, little arrogant, moronic daddy's boy. After 9/11 happened, we're going to get that guy Osama bin Laden dead or alive. Afghan war, longest war in American history, killed hundreds of thousands of Afghans, cost us trillions of dollars. 90% of the people swallowed the crap spewing out of the mouth of that little boy, all right? They'll swallow the crap. They'll make up a false flag attack, and the people will believe it. One of my lines is, when all else fails, they take you to war. Oh, what preceded 9/11? Oh, the dot-com bust. Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, we had forecast that in the Trends Journal when it was a quarterly. Now it's a weekly. In the autumn of 1999, we said it would bust by the second quarter of 2000. Oh, the NASDAQ went down only 80%. United States is in a recession. Hated little Georgie Bush. 9/11 happens, boop, a 180. Go back to the Great Depression. Yeah, history today. Right here for anybody, mainstream. The Great Depression is going on. Again, when all else fails, they take you to war. You ready? On July 26, 1941, President Franklin Roosevelt seizes all Japanese assets in the United States in retaliation for the Japanese occupation of French Indochina. Hey, French Indochina. Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, you're calling it French Indochina? Oh, yeah, we're robbing and pillaging up in Algeria, Morocco. Hey, we got the French Foreign Legion. You ready? The United States was joined by Britain and the Dutch East Indies. Dutch East Indies? What the hell are the Dutch doing up there in Indonesia? And we're stealing, robbing, and pillaging. And, you ready? The result? Japanese lost access to 3/4 of its overseas trade. 3/4 of its overseas trade and 88% of their imported oil. All right? They only import 100%. Okay, so you cut off their global trade. They can't get any oil, and you stole their money. I can't understand why they bombed Pearl Harbor. I've never been able to figure that out. They don't tell us this. They're going to pull the same crap with this. The United States economy is going down the crapper. Look at the numbers that came out with the people lost their jobs and how they keep, after they put out the lying numbers each month, then they revise them, how bad it is. Again, in the United States, the 10 richest people in the United States got $700 billion richer last year. This turned into Slavelandia. You had it, again, it's not what you like, what you want, what you wish for in trend forecasting, it's what is. I'm a Bronx guy. I know New York City. All right? They just elected this little boy of nothing that nobody ever heard of, Mondani. 34 years old, never heard of the guy. The mayor of the biggest city in America. How come? Because the people are broke and busted. All right? That's how bad America is. And by the way, this is very important. This is Generation Z, which equals Generation Zero. They got no dough. They're broke and busted. What happened in Nepal? Generation Z. Oh, what's going on in Kenya? Generation Z. Oh, they just overthrew the government of Bulgaria. Who did it? Generation Z. Oh, what about Tanzania, Morocco, Madagascar? One after another, Generation Z's taking to the street. Generation Zero, broke and busted. When all else fails, they take you to war. That's my greatest fear. And you mentioned, I heard some of it, these arrogant little clowns that are talking about how the people have to prepare for war in the UK and throw an FAU and a C in that UK with the jerks over there, and in England and in Germany. All telling the people to get ready for war.
And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, of course. Gerald, one other area I wanted to touch on with you is what I called at the beginning of the show, the bull in the china shop became the cuck in the china shop at the Hanukkah festival last night. He was humped for Hanukkah in front of all the cameras, first by Miriamadelson, then by proxy by Alan Dershowitz, and then in what could only be described as a humiliating pastiche by the big guy, marklevin. It was really quite humiliating. I felt embarrassed for the United States. It's quite clear that Israel's running Donald Trump, aren't they?
Oh, you mentioned Adelson. What did the old man give him? $100 million? Remember that? Hey, I'll be back when he was president the last time. Hey, we're moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, all right? Hey, you know that land you stole from Syria? Hey, it's yours, all right? And what did he get? Another couple of $100 million from Marion Ellison when he ran for office. Look at that little Huckabee jerk in there. One little clown after another. The United States ambassador to Israel. God told Abraham or Moses 3,500 years ago that this land belongs to the Jewish people. Oh, and these clown boys call themselves evangelical Christians? Hey, that's son, what Christ you talking about? How about thou shalt not kill? Thou shalt not steal. And save your fairy tale that God told them this 3,500 years ago. Shove it up here. You know what? Hey, what did God got lockjaw? Never spoke to anybody before or after? Oh, and all you people that call yourselves Christians, hey, Christmas time. I know you're concerned about how the markets will do with the maybe holiday sales and what Santa Claus will bring. How about the birth of the Prince of Peace? How come you little scumbags aren't talking about peace, huh? At the birth of Jesus Christ. And you're selling your crap. And where are all the religions? Oh, Christmas time, you believe in this stuff? How come you're not out there for peace? Oh, Santa Claus is coming to town. I forgot. Yeah, they lie. They say they're believers in the Prince of Peace, and they don't do crap for peace.
No, they're the antithesis of a peace presidency. But the humiliation last night, for me, was off the scale, and not least when Levin said to the world that you, President Trump, are our first Jewish president. And he said and repeated for a second time, it's true, it's true. Is he Jewish? Nothing wrong with that, but it would be wrong if he lied about it. It would be wrong if he allowed all these evangelical half-wits speaking in tongues, laying on hands, and touching him as if to touch the hem of his garment when they all thought he was a Christian. What is he?
How about Joe Biden? Called himself a Zionist. And how about that little clown boy that was the Secretary of State? Anthony Blinken. I went to Dalton. I went to Harvard. Don't you know my daddy was? He was the ambassador. Hungry. My uncle was the ambassador. That little arrogant clown. Oh, yeah. I come to Israel not only as a Secretary of State, but as a Jew. I could give a shit what religion you belong to. And I don't want to be getting involved in a religious war. And again, in your Trends Journal, going back to the spring of 2006, Crusades 2000, all right? 2006. While the seeds of the Crusades 2000 has been planted in full view of the world, and all those watching could have anticipated the eventual harvest, the memories of what happened and what would occur have been fogged by rigid ideology, fanatical religiosity, patriotic fervor, government propaganda, and ulterior motives. When we first forecast Crusades 2000, we wrote, quote, the formal battle lines for the new crusade had been drawn when Israel was created in 1948. Regardless of what England's reasons or intentions were, self-serving or otherwise, Crusades 2000 was set in motion in 1917's Balfour Declaration that laid the foundation for Israel. Quote, His Majesty's government. I'm going to stop right there for a second. You talked about the clown boys wearing those little gold things. How about this king clown with all his golden jewelry and the other stuff? If the king was Italian, they'd call these murderous bastards a mafia. But I'll keep going. Said the king said, His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and we will use our best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this objective. All right? The Balfour Declaration brought to you by the Rothschilds? You stole the land from them. I gotta believe this crap. Oh, and
well,
who
no,
are the ones that have been the presidents of Israel since they invented this thing? Eastern European Jews.
Yeah.
Not Semites. Oh, Ashkenazis. Oh, yeah. Ashkenazi. Ashkenazis.
Well, look, von der Leyen said tonight, Gerald, it's the truest word she's ever spoken. She said Jewish culture is European culture. And she's right about that. But that would, of course, make Israel a European colonial outpost in the Arab world, in the Middle East. It cannot be both European and Middle Eastern, even if they are allowed to participate in the Eurovision Song Contest. Gerald, you've been marvellous, but you made me lose my bet. I bet you'd get through the whole interview without swearing. You let me down there just at the death. Gerald Celente, Trends Journal publisher and founder of the Trends Research Institute. It's priceless, by the way, the Trends Journal. Anyone who's not reading it is a fool. Gerald Celente, thank you. Let me take a quick break, and then it's your calls right up to Gayatri's Roundup. Stay tuned. On the line is a legend. It's May in Oklahoma. On you go, May.
I know that when you started out in life, you probably were an outcast. And because of that, you love you love the outcast and you love the downtrodden. When I first started listening to you, you actually said you were embarrassed to have to ask for money. And I told you at that time that you didn't need to be, because you are worth your salt. Now you have MOATS TV, and I hope you have no shame asking for money to support, because I believe you're finally coming into your own and understanding how very, very important you are to many, many people all over the world, millions, I'm sure. And you also ask not only for their support, for their understanding, and you help motivate us to take action. I know you motivate me. And now you're being recognized all over the world. And I want you to remember, on those days when you just feel like you don't know how you can do it anymore, because we all feel that way. We see the pictures, we see the videos, we hear the news reports. You know, we Americans hear about shootings, and we all just despair sometimes. But I want you on those days to remember, number one, how far you've come from your beginnings. And number two, how far you brought other people along with you. Because you are bringing other people along with you. And you
well, that's
are
the most important thing, May. I have to stop you. You're going to make me cry. But the most important thing is the people I'm bringing with me.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Let's go to England, Hastings on the south coast, where David wants to talk about Trump and Venezuela. You see, we are the global university of the airwaves. Welcome, David. What have you got to say?
Good evening, George. Do you really think Trump is in charge of America? I can't see it. Not really. What he said before he went into the office and what's happening now. It's so... But that's not really my question. My question or thought for you is, if he does carry out the threat of invading Venezuela, do you think the USA should be banned from the World Cup, like Russia?
Well, the World Cup should never have gone to the United States. It is to the everlasting shame of FIFA that they gave it to the United States without requiring guarantees that all of the players, all of their staff, all of the retinue, dignitaries, and all the rest would be permitted to enter the United States to see their team and be with their team at the World Cup. And they're not. Iran has already been blockaded from the draw a couple of weeks ago for the World Cup, and now Senegal and one other African country, Ivory Coast, I think, all citizens of Senegal and the Ivory Coast are banned from the World Cup. Presumably they'll make an exception for the actual players of Senegal and the Ivory Coast, but with Trump in charge, you cannot possibly be sure of it. And the pantomime, Christmas pantomime, of Infantino and Trump at the Peace Prize, the FIFA Peace Prize. I've got to say, Donald Trump has brought the FIFA Peace Prize into disrepute by the war he's about to announce this evening. The World Cup should never have gone to the United States, which is way, way too unstable a rogue state to be permitted to have the precious Jules Rimet in its hands. Now, Poe 73 said, Gerald Celente, the Paul Revere of Kingston, Upper New York. He's really something. Really, really something. Stephen Andvin sends us £20. Stephen, thank you. And he makes the point that I make often myself. It's deja vu all over again. And Dan the Joliffe says, Max Blumenthal has always said that MAGA stands for Miriam Adelson's goals achieved. Because, as you said, she's the real president. And cheap at the price. Nobody even had to vote for her. Kurt Boss says the BlackRocks and the banks compensate themselves with replacing Ukraine and Palestine. The petrodollar is almost dead. The debt is unpayable and their standing has collapsed. The USA. It's just one big risk. And Julie MF says, I think the question should have been phrased slightly different. I think you should have said the USA rather than Trump. Or let's be honest, even better, included Europe. I take that point, but there's a limit to how many questions you can ask on a poll online. On line 2 is Osman in Denmark on Islamophobia. Osman, welcome.
Hello, Mr. Galloway. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Go ahead, sir.
First of all, much respect and love for you and your team. You are the true heroes. As a Muslim, I wanted to first of all condemn the Bondi Beach attack and all attacks made in Islam's name. No true Muslim will ever accept that. We as true Muslims, we are not allowed killings on innocent people unless in war. Even in war, we may not kill women, children, surrenders, or elders. To take life, that's not our job. God takes the soul and God gives the soul. We as Muslims, we have to treat other people with kind respect and dignity, even non-Muslims. There's no compulsion in Islam. You cannot force anyone to be Muslim or force Islam upon anyone. The second thing, I will make it fast, please let me. I just wanted to shed some light on the Islamophobia that is so widespread today, and it's so accepted even among politicians. Some radicals make videos like this Tommy Robinson guy who inflame speech, hate speech against Muslims and violence. I just saw a video about an American guy who had a pig in his hand, and he said, Muslims, you have to get out of here or we will drive you out to the sea and we will wrap you up in sort of a blanket. That and the Crusaders will soon come. Get out of here before the Crusaders come. I mean, how is he allowed to speak like that with no regret or no fire back against him? There is so much hate against Muslims, and now it's so widely accepted that you can say anything about Muslim. You can wipe the floor with the Islam and the Muslims, and nothing will happen to you. If you talk about any other minorities, like example the Jews, you will get cancelled. You will get so much hate. You will be on the front on the newspapers. And it's so accepted today. If you want to be famous, you can just talk about Muslims. Why do we have to pay the price for some fanatics, extremist who does something like this in Islam's name? I just wanted your opinion on that, Mr. Galloway. That is so normal and widespread.
Well, look, I couldn't put my opinion better than you just have. You put it absolutely perfectly. But I will only add one point. And I hope I don't offend you by doing so. If the super rich Muslim states in the world, if the filthy rich Muslim leaders in the world today would get off their knees and tell the people that they are endlessly handing gold and precious jewels and flattery and cowardice in front of. When I saw the way that Donald Trump behaved on his Gulf tour, when I counted, as best I was able, The brown envelopes under the table, of course, can never be counted, but the gold and jewels and precious things that these fools, these clowns, these jesters handed over to Donald Trump when he's done nothing but humiliate them, but support the people who are killing them, who has killed them himself in considerable number. When I saw them bowing and scraping like court jesters, I got to asking, Islam may be perfect, but the Muslims certainly ain't. Now, are you a member of the MOATS TV exclusive club yet? To join it, it's just a quick donation via the website, moats.tv. Up in lights tonight are James Glass, who is a generous weekly donor. Thank you, James. Giuliani Lira, Amira Kataria, Dennis Freeman, and Matthew Quinn. Thank you all very much indeed for your generosity and for the generosity of every one of you who, at some time this evening, will go to moats.tv and leave your donation. Haven't I worth it? Isn't the show worth it? £1, €1, $1, less than the price of a cup of coffee in an insalubrious cafe, as I used to say. Dennis is in New York and wants to talk about artificial intelligence. Any intelligence would be a fine thing, Dennis. What have you got in mind?
Thank you for taking my call again, George. Before I start with the AI subject, I just would like to make a comment about your poll, the greatest threat to world peace, two of them being two of the greatest world's religions. It should also be noted, I think, that the greatest positive force in the world today for world peace is also traditional, as has always been the case in all of human history, is traditional conservative values as expressed in Christian orthodoxy, as expressed in true Islam, and as expressed in the Catholicism that is rooted in Venezuelan society. So I think that it's the conservative traditional values that have always bound human beings together, and the greatest hope for peace in the world still lies in traditional religious values. So I'd just like to say that. I did forward the lady I spoke to on the phone a chart, and I don't know if she got it and was able to organize it and put it on for your viewers to see. But what it's a chart of is, and this is direct in direct relationship to artificial intelligence and what that means. The chart is a chart of the electrical generating capacity of the United States compared to China over the last 25 years. In the year 2000, China was generating 1,000 terawatts of electricity, and the United States was generating 4,000 terawatts of electricity. In 2025, China is generating over 8,000 terawatts of electricity, and the United States is still generating 4,000 terawatts of electricity. What this means, if it can be argued, and I believe it can be, that human activity moving forward is going to be largely organized around artificial intelligence and the ability to generate and organize large amounts of data. If that is true, and I believe it is true, then that is going to depend on one singular factor, and that is electrical generating capacity. So countries that the technology is one thing. The United States has advanced electronic technology, maybe more advanced than China. But being able to put that technology to use is the critical aspect of this, and the United States is going to be left on the sidelines of history because AI is going to organize industrial development, agricultural development, technological development, and all human, cultural, and social development. Big data is the future of all human activity.
We've lost Dennis. Great pity. A very interesting call. Dennis will talk again, I'm sure. Let me go to London, where my old friend Hoz wants to talk about Venezuela. Welcome, Chairman Hoz.
Hello, George. How are you? Hope you're well.
His Grace, I'm good, thank you.
Good. George, I just wanted to say that I'm actually I've listened to you talking about Venezuela not being attacked, and I thought to myself, that's the wisest thing, and for some kind of agreement to come into place. And if Venezuela is attacked, I think it is the end of the world order as we know it, because there is absolutely no reason whatsoever that the United States of America has got to invade or take over or try and basically bully a country using violence. If might is right, then we're going back to the old ages. We're going back to the days of, when an empire was allowed to do what it wants to do. We can forget about the word democracy. It's just whoever has got the greatest amount of power will now decide what happens. And if Europe and the EU and the rest of the global, the global West and East allow this to just pass and let this happen, I truly believe it is the end of the way this planet is run. And we're going to be going into a world of such dark tyranny, because if they are able to do what they want to do and succeed with a plan to just devastate a country from the sky, as they intend to, as Israel has done to Gaza, then I'm basically speechless. I don't know what the world will look like. And that's all I wanted to say. It's how I feel. I'm very
well. You said it very well. You said it very well. It's a return to the Dark Ages. Might is now right. That political power comes out of the barrel of a gun, and if you want to change anything or defend things that you have achieved, you'll have to have guns and people ready to use them. And I believe that Venezuela has that. They will, of course, be able to destroy all of Caracas from the air, but they will not be able to govern it from the air. To govern it, you require, as the Americans and British found in Iraq, you require hundreds of thousands of soldiers. And those hundreds of thousands of soldiers will all immediately be targets of an enraged and aroused and increasingly radicalized people. No one will accept foreigners invading their country and taking it over and running it for their benefit rather than ours. We wouldn't accept it. We would fight it. We would be in the resistance. There are some who would be the collaborators, of course, but we would be in the resistance. So why do we imagine the Venezuelans are less than us? They will resist, they will fight, and for a very, very long time. Get ready for 100 years war in Latin America. Lance is in Canada. Always good to hear from him. Lance, welcome.
Oh, you been, George? Good?
Yeah.
Hello?
Good.
Oh,
yeah, good.
I did
Go ahead,
make
sir.
The quick point, though, George, that you did break my heart a couple of weeks ago. You said that Jackson Hinkle has always been like a son to you. I guess I always wanted that to be me. But anyway, I'm just teasing. But,
I've no idea what age you are. You're too old to be my son.
Probably. Anyway, probably. But I'm not wise enough to be either. I guess my question now, I was watching a Chechen general talk about the Israelis in Gaza and stuff like that. I don't know, like that does seem like he was pretty angry. It did seem like it could be a fractious point for Russia, A. And B, Scott Ritter said that they're not going to win in Gaza, the Israelis, and they don't seem to have moved. So, like, is that the case? Like, Scott keeps talking about Ukraine, but he never updates us on Gaza.
Yeah. I mean, it is, Lance. I mean, I hurry on only, I promise you, because of the hour. And there are so many people. There are hundreds of people trying to get onto the show tonight, literally hundreds. So I hurry on only for that reason. But you make my point. In order to, or the point I just made to Hawes, you can't govern a country from the sky. You have to physically invade it, and you have to face the fire of the people you've invaded, and you will take casualties. And Israel, by that metric, has lost in Gaza. They have achieved nothing in Gaza beyond the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of people, the murder and maiming of hundreds of thousands of people, and the destruction of whatever reputation they had in the world by so doing. But they are not able to impose their will on Gaza. And if the public had their way and withdrew the support of their countries from Israel, Israel would quickly collapse. For all braggadocio of Benjamin Netanyahu, when he told us at Hanukkah in his address with Huckabee in the audience, I am demanding that the governments of the world take action to my satisfaction. My first thought was, who the F do you think you are? And number two, how's that going to play in Peoria or in Toronto or in parts north, south, east and west of that? Don't miss the campaign talk tomorrow night on the Workers' Party YouTube channel. Mark Belshaw is a great, great young man. Is joined by maybe our plum candidate in Birmingham. They'll all be good, but Usman Noor, the barrister who's done so much for Palestine, he would be my favourite Workers' Party candidate in Birmingham. And he, for the first time, if you haven't seen him speak before, you really must tune in. And Musa Ali, another of our candidates, is in Birmingham, is also there. Forgive me, Musa. It starts at 9 p.m. Check it out on the Workers' Party YouTube channel. Now, a new caller, Rabiu, is in Cambridge on Trump and Venezuela. Go ahead, Rabiu.
Hi, George. I just want you to help me understand this. Trump says he will intervene in Nigeria to stop the Christian genocide. However, the same man is trying to go and murder Christians, or rather predominantly Christians, in Venezuela. Just about Christmas. Yeah. This is what I don't understand. And also the people that would suffer.
Well, I understand it, don't you? I mean, I understand it. This man is drunk on power. This man is roaming around like Caligula in the White House. This is a kind of Rabelaisian orgy that Donald Trump is now involved in. I don't know if there's any actual orgying going on, but frankly, I wouldn't be surprised. There certainly was in his Playboy days, as Ms. Wiles, his chief of staff, put it in Vanity Fair today. In his Playboy days, we're about to find out just exactly who he did and what age they were and the kind of things that he got up to. So I do understand it, Rabiu. He's doing it because he can. And he's doing it because the others can't stop him. But he's going to discover that he's bitten off more than he can chew. I've got to clear the decks because there's a legend on the line. It's Norma in Bristol. Norma, welcome back. So wonderful to hear you again.
Oh, hello, George. I just wanted to know what your feelings are about these pro-Palestinian people who are in prison and those who are on hunger strikes, because, like Lamy and Summer, they've said and done nothing, and a lot of them are old, and They just care about the genocide in Gaza. You see, I've read a lot of nasty tweets saying, "Oh, let them die," you know. And I think this season of goodwill is a joke, isn't it?
Well, it's deeply disturbing, that kind of talk, but I don't believe that it's supported by most people.
No.
Most people do not want to see untried prisoners held on remand, starving themselves to death. And as they all started their hunger strike at different times, we better get used to what you and I both remember, Norma, from the 1980s, the serial deaths of people who've starved themselves to death in pursuit of legitimate demands of the British prison service and of the British so-called justice service. Just for international viewers, 7 or 8 maybe of the people in jail for more than a year awaiting trial, so guilty of nothing, presumed innocent people held in high security prisons for more than a year already, and in many cases nearly double that by the time their trial actually comes to court, when they will almost certainly be acquitted, but will have been punished illegitimately for a year, 18 months, nearly 2 years before they come to trial. Most people do not want to see that happening.
No.
But Thatcher and the Tory government did it to the Irish people in the 1980s, and Starmer and Lammy are doing it now to the Palestine supporters. Last word to you, Norma.
Well, I mean, I don't want to swear like Celente, but it just pisses me off because, you know, Starmer's yesterday at the questions wishing everybody a very happy Christmas. What blimmin' happy Christmas are those poor people going to have? And are they going to have a sandwich or what, you know? That's all, really.
It is. It is truly awful, abominable. This Labour government is an abomination. It is a heresy against anything called a Labour or Workers' Party. It is an abortion, an unholy thing. And they're presiding over all of our ills, including that one. Norma in Bristol, a legend, makes way for another legend. It's Erobos in New York on the subject of resistance. Go ahead, Erobos.
Greetings and salutations, Mr. G. I hope my signal is a lot better this time. There was actually a storm going on the last time, so I don't know how you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Very clearly, my dear.
Huh. Okay. Well, then there was a delay. Well, of course, shout out to Clan Galloway, the MOATS staff, Jaya, first of her name, who's well planted in life. You know, the lady Gayatri, she was wearing a QR code, and I scanned it, and it kept taking me to a dance club in Indonesia. Right after the third time, you know, I couldn't make the admission, so I just stopped scanning her. But
well, I'll have to quiz her closely about that. What, was she planning to wait for me to fall asleep before shimmying out to a dance club in Indonesia? I need to know. Go on, Erobos.
There's no idea. It's beyond my pay grade, and I don't get paid at all. So, yeah, I mean, the thing with Trump, right, this him coming out as Jewish, it should put to rest finally and once for all this whole Christian notion that you've always pilloried and ridiculed. Because the fact of the matter is, you know, Trump's a liar, his breath stink, and he don't love Jesus. So, you know, and that goes for the rest of them. So, you know, so much for that whole Christian thing that he's talking about. Excellent guess. I hope Angelo is safe in Venezuela and he returned safely to his parts for whence he came. Great reporting on the ground. and Gerald Celente, he's like a spirit animal. He just says it the way it is. But with the time left, I wanted to segue into the axis of resistance. I think, from my perspective, it's been way past time that it's time for a secular sort of a secular insertment or a secular review. Because, the way this is going, the only people that's going to be left in Palestine is Hamas, all right? And they're going to have to build an underground city, like in that movie with Wesley Snipes, Demolition Man. I think what Osman said made a lot of sense, but it's also, from my view, the reason why the resistance is getting crushed and why the people are getting murdered. I mean, it's not for me to tell people what to believe and not what to believe, but if someone is killing your children, they're telling you that you have no future and you will have no future. And that's the whole point of having children, as far as I understand it, is to cast a net into the provision and the probability of the future. So when people start killing your children and your response is to pray about it and fast about it, and if this is God's plan or Allah's plan, then what's the point of living? What's the point of even having children? Just wait to be killed by the Zionist enemy. Again, these are my perspectives, and so I think it's time as a sort of response to this whole thing, in terms of solutions-based thinking is what I was getting at. Something similar to Nasserism, where people have to, if this doesn't happen, I don't see how this is going to be resolved. Everyone is just going to be killed in Palestine. I don't understand it. I see pictures of Israel, or what they call Israel, occupied Palestine, and these glimmering towers, and these people making TikToks, and chasing Palestinians their home, and their response is just to pray. It just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe I'm missing something, but I just wanted to say that, and thank you to MOATS.
I understand your frustration, Robos, and even a slight tinge of despair, but there's plenty of resistance. The Palestinian resistance resists until this day, and that's why there are whole parts of Gaza that Israel cannot enter and certainly cannot govern. Every inch of the territory is still contested, and it will continue to be contested. There is a resistance in Lebanon, fighting an enemy to its front, but also an enemy to its rear. People who are wielding knives in the back of the resistance on behalf of the empire. There is still resistance in Syria, and maybe even the ISIS Al-Qaeda government in Damascus will have to recalibrate its attitude if Israel keeps on stealing more and more of its land and lighting menorah for Hanukkah on its highest places, like Mount Hermon, which they did earlier this week. So there's resistance in the Ukraine. There's resistance amongst the Russian people. There's determination amongst the Chinese people, millions strong, the biggest army, the biggest navy, the biggest air force in the world, and with hypersonic ballistic missiles. There's plenty of resistance. Cuba has resisted since 1959 the attempts by the empire to choke them to death and to murder their leaders. And Cuba stands. Cuba exists and resists, and no Yankee will dare set foot on Cuba. You can be sure about that. Now, it would appear that they are about to invade Venezuela, and I have already told you, I believe wholeheartedly that millions of Venezuelan people will resist. They may not immediately prevail. Power may change hands, but the war will be a prolonged one, a guerra prolongera. So everything's still in play. The wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who it will be naming. Robos brings the callers, at least, to a close. And I'd like to mention that families of the hunger strikers, alongside doctors, lawyers, campaigners, and members of Parliament, though not many of them, will hold a press conference tomorrow morning calling on the Justice Secretary to urgently meet and intervene as the health of 8 political prisoners in Britain rapidly deteriorates. The conference is at 11 o'clock tomorrow in the Macmillan Room at Portcullis House, 1 Victoria Embankment, London SW1A2JR, which was once one of my parishes. The 8 prisoners held on remand for actions taken in solidarity with Palestine have been on an open-ended hunger strike since the 2nd of November. That's a long time to be on hunger strike. Well, my good wife is in the room, and I hope with plenty to say. What's rattling, Gayatri?
Peace. We're talking about peace tonight, right? Which is the greatest threat to peace, to world peace, we're asking. And JDU says Israel is a malignant tumor on the earth. Unfortunately, they are nearly as good at buying people as they are at killing people. Anyone who supports them supports death, destruction, misery, corruption, and hatred. No
You're
doubt,
evil. If you're
Satan.
supporting Israel, after all this, you are evil. That's it. I've said it.
He said it. Satan delights in Israel's action. How about that? And Sherry Slaboda says, I will rank the EU leaders as the second greatest threat. Not only as a threat to world peace, but through ignorance and hate, they are destroying their own stability and prosperity. Now, today, one of the Belgian MEPs came to the rostrum in Brussels. His name is Tom van den Driessen, and he said, the EU started off as a peace project and has now become a warmongering monster project. He continues, what if the frozen Russian assets are not enough? This is cynicism and belligerence on the part of the EU. The confiscation of Russian assets is the largest robbery in the history of the EU. And if you want to support Ukraine, then do it at your own expense. What is he talking about? He's talking about Russian assets being frozen and being stolen. In the case of Britain, the former owner of the Chelsea Football Club, Abramovich, a Russian Israeli, we must say, had all his assets frozen, and today it's been decided that they will take it.
And give it to Ukraine. I mean, it's bad enough stealing Russians 2.5 billion. If you're going to steal somebody's money, why don't you spend it on your own poor people, on your own old people, the people that are freezing to death this evening in Britain? You're going to take 2.5 billion pounds, and give it to Zelensky when he's already proved that he's one of the biggest thieves in human history? Seriously?
Seriously. I mean, we are no fans of Abramovich.
No.
But this is outrageous. And if you can't stand up and point out the obvious, then who's next? Well, next was on the card Jacques Boat. And he has been added to the sanction list by the EU for pro-Russian propaganda. So he has been added to the pro-Russian propaganda sanction list. And this man is a Swiss retired colonel. He was a Swiss colonel, specialized in intelligence, in peacekeeping. He worked with NATO, and now he's had all his assets frozen. He lives in Belgium, but because he's Swiss, does this mean he can go back? Because now the question of traveling, of course, comes to play. Switzerland not being part of EU, but from Belgium to fly to Switzerland, you have to, of course, cross the EU airspaces. And this is something that our first guest, Angelo, was raising, because he is an Italian-Swiss national himself. So he raised a very valid point. What does this mean in terms of mobility, freedom of mobility?
Well, I mean, This is a colonel in the Swiss army, a mean user of the Swiss army knife, if you get me, who was an advisor to NATO, and now he's been cancelled. And as you say, his assets and his very freedom of movement to his own country are now imperiled. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I just saw a tweet from Angelo. He can no longer write about the Russia-Ukraine conflict because he has assets, house, family in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. And what happened to Jacques Baud could just as easily happen to him.
Yep.
So,
I did see
have we really reached the stage where you are silencing your own citizens to please Zelensky, and you are going to rob your own people of their financial resources? You're right. It's Abramovich today.
Yeah.
It's you tomorrow. Can't you see? Anything else?
I did have Angelo's tweet in front of me. I did see it. I wanted to raise it, but you raised it. So we have a former football club owner and former colonel. Added to the list as well is Xavier Moreau. He is a former French military man. And in addition to that, also John Mark Dugan, an American-Russian citizen, former deputy sheriff in Florida. I mean, these are high-ranked...
Yeah, people of substance. I have no idea who some of those people are. And again, for the avoidance of doubt, I despise Roman Abramovich for how he got his money and what he does with his money, mainly giving it to extremist settlers in Israel. I despise him. But what's happened to him cannot possibly be justified unless you think that governments can steal people's money for political reasons and give them away to other people. If you think that, fine. But if you don't think that, then don't be laughing at what happened to Roman Abramovich, because it might happen to you next. Gayatri, let's get chips. We've still just about got time.
Yes, let's go.
And
let's close.
We'll be back with the people on Sunday, God willing. And from, well, rather warmer parts, I'm hoping at least, we'll see you, God willing, on Sunday for the mother of all talk shows. Please give generously in the donation column on MOATS.tv. We need your support. And if we get it, we'll go as long as God gives me breath. So help me.
It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows.
Go get 'em, George.